What is up, everybody? How's it going? Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Today, I'm going to be doing a review of Harry Potter and discussing all the movies in one. And I finally finished all of them today, so that's why I'm doing this video. I never finished the second set of the movies, like Order of the Phoenix, Deathly Hallows, um, and stuff like that. So I finally wanted to finish it off and see what it was all like. Um, and so let's get into it. If you saw my movie lot, you would know that I got all the Harry Potter movies, like the later ones. I have seen all the early ones when I was a kid and many years after that. So I saw like Sorcerer's Stone, The Prisoner of Azkaban, the Chamber of Secrets. I saw all those early ones, but I never saw the later ones. So very happy I picked those ones up and finally got to watch them once and for all. I saw scenes of it from like part two, part one, Half Blood Prince, Order of the Phoenix, all of them, but I never sat down and actually finished them all. So today I actually did that. So let's talk about it. So I first want to talk about the environment and the nature and the beauty of it all. So the environments were really cool. I liked the castle. I liked everything about it. I liked how they showed the forest and the lake, especially in Goblet of Fire. They expanded more into their environment itself there. Um, and then they had other environments. Once it got into Deathly Hallows, it showed more environments outside the castle, but they're kind of bland in my opinion. So not really much interest to me. So that was kind of like the beauty of all. I really loved the whole atmosphere and the whole um, design they put into the whole set, and I really think they really did a good job there. So let's talk about the characters because they were kind of interesting. So let's talk about Ron. He is actually really cool, good side character, but he's very unsure of himself. He goes on like mood swings. I mean, he's a teenager, so he's like happy in one scene and he gets jealous in one scene and mad in another scene and sad in another scene. And I was just like, really, bro, just keep one specific attitude. And so that's kind of like my deal with him. Hermione, on the other hand, she was very smart. She was confident. Um, she did complain a lot, but I mean, that's kind of what I expected out of the group, especially when they have so much trouble in their hands. They're like, why did you do this? Why can't we do this? You buffoon, why don't you do this? So she was very, very confident in what her abilities was. I kind of liked her in that. She had that personality, which I did love. Harry, on the hand, he's very unsure of himself. It was basically luck of how he did it. I think he described it in the movies that way, is that everything that happened to him was based on luck. He was unsure about all the spells he did cast, but rather it was just fate and luck that he happened to be alive. So, um, and then some of the other characters, Neville was cool. I felt like it was cool to kill him to kill the snake in the end, but I didn't really see much of him. Like I didn't really care for him in the end. I did like the other Weasley family. I really love the mom. She reminds me of another one of my own friends' moms, where she cared about everyone she sees, and she's very lovely. So it was cool seeing the Weasley family. In terms of like end game characters, especially when it got to the Goblet of Fire, I was kind of confused what happened to that other guy. Um, I think it was like the minister's son or something like that. I don't know his actual name, but he was caught in the end, the Goblet of Fire. I don't know exactly what happened to him. We'll talk about that later on when it gets to the plot. But he was kind of interesting. Everyone else, yeah, they showed up. It was cool seeing them. But those were kind of like the main characters I wanted to talk about. Malfoy and um, or Draco Malfoy and Snape, and all those were really cool. But I felt like it was mostly the three characters and some other characters on the side. So let's talk about the plot, because this one is how kind of like my main gripes is I have with the plot and organization of all the films. So what was interesting is that the plot kind of centers around the Dark Lord returning, because the plot mainly advances in the end, and it goes from like beginning to end, and then it's once it gets to the second half, it starts to accelerate because the Dark Lord comes into play. Um, in the first half, it was kind of okay, but I didn't really have a problem with it. It had its own plot within a plot, so I mean, it was fine. It had the Sorcerer's Stone, it had the Chamber of Secrets, like the book and the snake in the end. So I didn't really have a problem with the early films. It was the later I noticed in Deathly Hallows. Once I got to that, I was like, oh, yeah, this has a major problem. So let's talk about it. I noticed that I love the whole plot with them trying to find the Horcruxes. Horcruxes that was fine with me, but in terms of like um, explaining everything, I guess either it was me or it was the movies. I don't know which, but I had some trouble following what was going on because it was cool. Let's talk about the Deathly Hallows for a second. So, three people cheated death. I wish they would tell more about that. Who were these people? And in the end, they didn't actually explain where the cloak was. The invisibility cloak. I forgot what happened to it, but I think it was used in like the Chamber of Secrets and maybe in, or the Sorcerer's Stone and maybe in Chamber of Secrets. But I don't know anything beyond that. So I think that was it. I'm not sure. It was very rushed in the end. That was my problem. It's like they had like it went from finding like some Horcruxes to easily death of what was his name, Tom Riddle or Voldemort, and that was kind of like my problem is it was very rushed and it didn't explain. It. I know there's a lot and it probably explains in the books, but in the movies it was just too rushed for me because I was like, what's going on? What happened to Tom Riddle in the end? And so there was so much going on. It was just hard for me to watch because it was very I just felt like it was rushed. That's all. So, but in terms of the other plots, in terms of the in terms of the other stuff where they had the Order and they had the Dark Forces and just good between evil, that was fine. It was just all this explanation in the plot just didn't really make sense in the end because you just didn't know where characters were. For example, the guy with the Goblet of Fire, the Minister's son, you don't know what happened to him. I wanted him to come back maybe as a cameo or something in the later films, but no. I think they killed him off or something like that, and they never explained what happened to the old minister. But yeah, the plot, it just existed to be there. I just felt like there was a lot of stuff happening that they couldn't explain to me fully, and I'd love to, but maybe I'll look into lore and figure out some videos and stuff like that. But that was kind of the plot because I would love, especially for those people from Goblet of Fire, the other schools, I would love to have them make a short return or cameos still. That was a great part. Oh my gosh, seeing the our friends from the north. Please welcome their headmaster, blah blah blah. Anyways, so those were fun people to see, and I mean, it was a fun time seeing friends and stuff. I would love them to fight. Oh, speaking of fight, I was so mad because the thing is, they built Dumbledore's army, right? They trained these students, and I felt like that was more of a defensive move than an offensive move. I felt like they wanted to fight for the army, but it was like they got attacked and they only defended themselves. They weren't on the front end risking their lives um, to go to Voldemort and the Dark Forces. I felt like they needed to be stronger, so much stronger to actually fight against these people. Because if they took the offensive side and they got enough students, oh my gosh, it would have been a much bigger fight and a much bigger scene in terms of like how much was going on in the end. Because it would have been so cool. It's like to see some people go in and fight and just overall defeat the forces with the army they had, especially in Order of the Phoenix, where it's like, man, I just love that they just took down the move and like for Bellatrix instead of the Mrs. Weasley taking her out. Oh my gosh, I would love like for a student to take her out, the part of the army that they trained for, you know. So I meant like it should have been more in terms of action, in terms of like how much they prepare the students for the final fight, because it seemed like they did nothing with it. It was a defensive move, and some people might say, yeah, it might do it, but in my opinion, it should have been the offensive. They should have taken the fight to Voldemort instead of Voldemort taking the fight to them. So that's was my main issue in terms of like the fight sequence. In terms of, like I said, the design and the CGI, loved all that. Um, Especially once it got to Order the Phoenix at the end. I loved that final fight. It was so amazing. Lots of colorful explosions, lots of action and music going on. It was a very fun time. But that was just kind of like my idea of the plot. It just didn't really explain things well, and overall, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be in terms of like the description, and it was just too fast. So, I mean, again, they probably could explain stuff in the books, but in terms of a movie perspective, it took things way too fast. Um, and lastly, let's talk about the action. In terms of the action, I really liked most of it. I know they had to explain a lot in the movies what was going on, the Horcruxes, to explain the different houses, to explain the Lord, the grandfather, or the Godfather, to explain the parents, what happened. I get that. I get that. But I would love to have more of a budget into the action because it was like Chamber of Secrets is fun. Yeah, they had the serpent fight. At what was it? The Sorcerer's Stone was a good fight at the end. Prisoner of Azkaban, I mean, that was a cool fight. Half-Blood Prince, not really a fight in the end. So I would just love them to put more CGI into the fight sequences because that's when I'm there. But maybe I'm missing the point. Maybe it was for kids and they just like to see some things float in air and some casting done like Stupefy or Expelliarmus or something like that. So, but I wanted to see more fight sequences, more money and budget into them rather than just all the set pieces. I don't know. That's probably just me. So overall, that's kind of like my opinions on the movie. I had to get this out because I just saw that all the film, like the later films, and finally finishing up the series. So very happy for it. But I would probably rate it, the whole thing, maybe a 7 out of 10. Yeah. It was really cool. 7.5 out of 10. So let's say 7.3 to be fair. 7.3. Is that fine? Okay. And that's kind of like how I would rate the Harry Potter films because there's a lot to explain, but it was rushed. I didn't see other characters come back. So it was just... but it had good action and it had good moments in it. So I'm not dogging on the movie. I'm just saying that there's things that they missed and could have done better in terms of a movie perspective. The books probably are amazing. I'm not dogging on that. I'm just criticizing the movie in general because that's the only thing I've seen. So I'm just trying to be fair, you know. And so that's kind of like my opinions on the film. I'll probably rate it a 7.3 out of 10. So it was good. But it wasn't the best in terms of like what I saw. And that's kind of like my review of Harry Potter. I know I'm like the last person who has ever seen it on Earth. So you guys probably haven't seen it. So, or you guys probably have seen it. I haven't seen it. Finally watched it. So you guys might have a different opinion, but that's kind of like my opinion. It was just rushed in the end, and I just wish they had a little bit more in terms of storytelling and cameos and just explaining things more. So hopefully you guys are doing well. This is just my review of the movie, and with lots and love and respect, I will see you guys later. Hopefully you guys are doing well, and I'll just see you guys later. Have fun and stay safe out there. Bye.